welcome to the show. I'm Kraig, your host, my biz guide, the business of being human, the outdoor guide for your inner journey, and the business consultant for the business of being you. Thanks for being here. Tonight's workshop is called What Do We Do? What do we do? The context, right, is there's a lot going on. Lots going on in the world today. Oh, also, timeout, segue. I'm just getting over a cold. So if you see me hit mute and jump off stage really quick, it's because I'm coughing. And I'm actually finishing a cough drop right now. So this might be a little bit less formal than usual. Obviously my suit didn't get done from the cleaner in time. So it might be a little bit like that. Anyways, yes, what do we do? I think that with everything going on, right? I don't know if we need to go over the minutia of things, but a lot of people are stressed, a lot of people are overwhelmed. There's definitely a lot to do. That's for sure. There is a lot to do. So I had a couple ideas. And I think that, especially with the political climate, I think that if we all chip in 50 cents a week for a year, we'll have enough to hire an attorney to draft up a really good piece of litigation that we can push through the Congress. Is anyone buying that? Right. I didn't get anything by this crew because everyone's going, well, wait a minute. He's always saying government money clocks and some kind of thing like that, and that we can't buy or legislate our species into the future, right? Well, what does that leave us with? First thing is to understand the challenge, right? Embracing challenge. We have to understand the challenge. We have to actually understand it to the point that we could write about it, that we can explain it. Right? We feel things wrong. It's a hugely emotionally overwhelming if we just sit in our emotion. But there's a good place for the cognitive here. We've got our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, right? And a lot of people are neglecting that mental aspect. And because it's been co-opted and false narrative laden and misappropriated by contemporary society, since contemporary society's been contemporary society. It's the thing about intelligence and the false narrative of intelligence being separate from our instincts, our emotional intelligence, and our ancestral wisdom. But real intelligence, you only need to think about what the concept is, doesn't disregard naturally occurring aspects of humanity. We're talking about humanity. And talking about humanity, the challenge is, to cut to the chase, the challenge is that a lot of people aren't thinking. A lot of people, short version, a lot of people aren't doing their personal development. A lot of people aren't doing their introspection. Right, MJ? That's MJ's favorite word. She's always saying that. Introspection. She's always saying you got to do your introspection. So people, when people start thinking about what do we do, I'm afraid that a lot of people have that concept. They're looking at it from an external standpoint, and it's an internal issue, and it's understanding our species on an internal level, right? And that's what we talk about, internal ecosystems, and understanding internal ecosystems by way of understanding external ecosystems. You know, what happens within happens on the outside, inside, outside. There's always going to be that mirror going on. See, what happens above happens below. I think with all the information that contemporary society has and the state of contemporary society, something that I find interesting is where's the conversation? Where are all the studies about why our species is destroying its planet? Like, has anyone ever heard of a study just specifically on that? Why the species is disregarding the planet that they live on? Anyone? Anyone? I haven't either. You'd think that would register. You think that would register on someone's importance list, wouldn't you? I mean, they study all kinds of stuff. Don't you think that would be like a fun little venture to send someone down? Get a couple, enthusiastic college students to figure that out. But really, yeah, lack of connection to our internal is what I see, because that reflection, those things all, if we pay attention, there's patterns. Kind of like when we talk about narcissists. The reason you can't talk to a narcissist is because they're not talking with themselves. The reason why the conversation about emotional intelligence and emotions is difficult with a narcissist is because they're not having that relationship with their own emotional aspects, their own emotional facets. So this is encouraging everyone to build those relationships with ourselves. What we can do is grow ourselves. When we grow ourselves, we understand those around us, right? Well, understand yourself, understand others, understand yourselves. Actually understanding our species so we can speak to these things, so we know ourselves, so we know when someone's sick, right? This is just exactly in line with everything we know about modern medicine. If we know someone's sick, hey, maybe we'll know how to treat it. If we know what the challenge is, then we can start finding solutions. But people have to engage themselves. People have to use our own volition and our intention and apply ourselves to the sickness in our species, just like we would any other thing that we need to figure out. There's all kinds of things. People can figure out what's going on. People can figure out how to get to the moon, but not some core human aspects, which all the materialism, I think, is a huge reflection of that lack of engagement with our own interpersonal ecosystem, and which is exactly understanding addiction. It's filling the voids with everything except for what goes there. And if we understand addiction, which I know people here do, and it's a good, I think, understanding addiction is a good, valuable understanding in contemporary society, because it really does let us see a lot of other human sickness, energetic human sickness, mental, emotional, spiritual human sickness through that lens. So understanding addiction, the addict will try to do everything except for actually quit using the substance, and it's filling those voids with everything except for what goes there. So I think the best example of addiction is Americana itself and the materialism, because having a bunch of gadgets is not having a relationship with our own internal processes, with our own natural inner ecosystem, our own internal natural ecosystem. If we don't have that with ourselves, then we can't understand ourselves, we can't understand others. One of the reasons that people grow and develop is because they've had experience that's made us dig down and understand ourselves and understand our emotions and do that long process of cross-referencing. How do I, or why do I feel the way I feel? And how do I really feel about this? And what do I think about this? But what are my words? What are my actions attached to X subject? That's how people grow. And people that have found themselves non-conforming to the status quo are the people that have developed better relationships with themselves. Now and it makes sense, of course. That's challenge. That's how challenge works. Challenge encourages us to engage with whatever the challenge is. And if we think about challenge in the place of challenge, and where it's flowing through contemporary society and why there's so much trauma and so much strife, well, there's one part where that doesn't go away. Challenge doesn't go away just because people choose to ignore it, right? Lessons from addiction again, lessons from trauma, lessons from growing through trauma. Our challenges don't just go away. Oh, that's why my hand's up. They compound, actually. So ignoring them does not make them go away. Engaging in our challenge. And so if we're not connected with ourselves, of course, the natural laws are going to what? Create more challenge that makes us connect with ourselves. And a lot of times that is, yeah, a lot of times that's going to be coming in the form of, what we call trauma. So we could say, oh, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me, but really this is happening to our species on a species-wide level. So having a holistic understanding of what's going on with our species definitely gives us more leverage to understand what's going on with us as an individual and where we fit into our species and where we fit as an organism on a natural planet. This is what I'm saying about understanding. If we understand these things, then we have some leverage with our challenges. But we do actually have to understand them. We have to understand. I think contemporary humans have to understand that thing called addiction, have to understand that thing called trauma, have to understand that thing called narcissism, have to understand 100% have to understand natural laws and natural ecosystems and how these things work. And it only makes sense that the universe is encouraging us to do so. But you have to think about that. You have to understand how challenge works in order to get to that viewpoint. And then when we understand that, okay, there's naturally occurring challenge, so this has happened, so embrace the challenge. And then we can start to grow through that. And then we can start to get some leverage. And kind of funny, I made a post the other day, and I've had this experience a few times. Every so often it comes up where I'll say something about not getting our head stuck in contemporary narrative. And I think I said something about I marked myself safe from needing to describe myself in accordance with any political affiliation, right? And this is common, so I don't mind talking about it. And if someone's here that said that, don't feel bad because other people say it too. But it brings up good conversation. So I'll say something like that, like, hey, don't get stuck in all the shit that's going down. And people will, well, you can't just ignore it. So I'm not saying ignore it. I'm saying I'm saying don't let it consume you, because then we're ineffective at challenge. And yes, you can identify challenge and not let the challenge overwhelm you at the same time. That is 100%. That's how challenge is supposed to work. No matter what, that challenge might look like it's coming from contemporary society, and it is on one level, but the other level is that it's just challenge. And at its core, it's just challenge. And in fact, and it was a very big eye opener for me to have this understanding. In fact, everything that I personally understand about human behavior, human development, trauma, addiction, I wouldn't know these things if it wasn't from the shitheads that I'm trying to get rid of, you know. And there's a native lesson of trickster teacher going on there, and that's what it's about. When people get stuck on, oh, it's the Republicans and it's the Democrats and it's the colonial government, yeah, all of those, 100%. But beyond that, there's challenge. And what's challenge trying to do? So to understand these natural laws helps us put things in perspective, and also helps us see things in layers. Because yes, this person's a shithead. I wouldn't do what that person did. Thanks for the example. But still, how much blame is there? It's not, and it's a lesson in blame, right? Relation, for example, relationships are tricky. I always tell people, watch the blame thing, because you never know. It looks like this person's being a shithead, and yes, they are. But again, a system, an ecosystem, there's not just one part to it. It's multiple parts, and we need to be looking at life in multiple parts, because if this is the colonial mindset, is to think, oh, it's this thing and it's this thing and it's this thing, and take life and assign singular labels to what's going on, and that is 100% not what's going on. Life is encouraging to look at it in multiplicity, through a multiplicity lens. And that's why we talk about understanding our inner ecosystems and what's an ecosystem, and that all these things morph together to help us grow. So when I say yes, grow, and that we can transcend the contemporary narrative, 100% we can. And that's my own experience. And yes, no, I put my work in too. I really have, and I do. And that's what we have to do. We have to embrace the challenge on the level that it requires. And it's resonating with me. Is that, here we go again. Isn't that like a super simple thing? It's kind of like that. Are we really having this conversation? If our species is imploding, where's the studies? Yeah, it's gonna be. We're gonna have to study. We're gonna have to actually understand. We're gonna have to buckle down and really put some pieces together. Is everyone traumatized from the scholastic system? Yeah, probably. Okay, we need to recognize that and separate that out. Learning, understanding can't be a barrier. Doing something good for the planet, which means unraveling the clusterfuck that's the human species, can't come under, oh, it's a lot of work, or I don't have time, or is it worth it? That kind of thing. it's sort of like that, like those narratives floating around in contemporary society articulate the sickness perfectly. I think the what do we do part is, I get it. They're overwhelms a thing. Yeah, I get it. And the other part is that, yeah, I get it. I understand. I can speak to it because I do understand. I'm not negligent. I'm not dismissive. I'm saying, yes, there's this, but you can't just stick in the sickness. It's like we got to heal. We have to. There's more at stake than even than the human species. And even if there wasn't, it's challenge. Come on, embrace the challenge. Let's go. Um, so there's a lot to understand. There's a lot of internal work to clear these blockages out, um, to clear the trauma resulting from around learning from school. That's a big one. Work. When I start working with a client, I always say, with a co-advocate, I always say the first thing to do is you have to have a good relationship with the concepts behind the work and the concepts behind the, excuse me, you have to have a good relationship with the concept behind the word work and a good relationship with the concept behind the word serious. And those two things in contemporary society tend to carry negative connotations. In our psychology, I think that's a huge barrier for people embracing their own challenge, their own internal challenge, because all the things we need to do to grow are now they're falling under our experience with other concepts that are miles apart, that are still coming under the English words of work and serious. So our internal work in our personal development is not flipping burgers for minimum wage to be part of the wheel and pay our bills and be paying for life as we know it. Life has been commoditized. It's a pay to play game. So we're immersed in it, but engaging our own personal development doesn't cost money. And if we grow ourselves, if we start growing challenge internally, we can start growing through challenge externally. So we've got our own whiteboard, we've got our own test program, and it's in the mirror. So what do we do is looking in the mirror is the key component to what we do, and actually understanding some of the challenges. Ask what you do, ponder what you do a little bit, but it's the doing part. It's the start doing. And really, if we talk about the challenge of life and death, that's an instinctual response. That find what you can do, find your place, find your own individuality, because that's where we mesh with everything. Because the challenge with contemporary society is that contemporary society would treat everybody as a cog in the machine with no personality, with no individuality. And what's the machine doing? Nothing. Spinning wheels. It's a spinning wheel machine, which leads us back is to not get your wheels caught in the spinning wheel machine of contemporary society, because that's all it's doing. If you ever talk to a narcissist, right? And we had the 7-part conversation about narcissism. One of the hallmarks of narcissism is you spin your wheels. You don't get anywhere. And that's the feeling that we get. If you pay attention to your feeling involved with a narcissist, that's what happens, is your growth hits a stalemate really quick. Why? Because the person that you're hanging with is not doing their personal development. If you hang with someone that's into their personal development, your personal development is going to rise. If you're trying to hang with someone that's not into their personal development, your personal development is going to get cut off dramatically, because a personal development requires nurturing to ourselves. And the classic narcissist is not nurturing themselves. And here's welcome to oppression, welcome to America. My next book is going to be called Narcissism EDU, Deconstructing Oppression. And here's how it goes. Exactly that is the narcissist on an individual level is not having a relationship with themselves, is not nurturing themselves, is not listening to themselves. Therefore, what happens to the next person over? Right? Too obvious. Pattern recognition now. If we pay attention to what's going on with each other, we can see these processes. We can see this pattern recognition. We can see, oh, the reason you can't talk to a narcissist is because they're not talking with themselves. Oh, okay, that makes sense. People are asking the narcissist for emotional support. The narcissist isn't giving themselves emotional support. You know, like one of the key factors with understanding humanity is don't ask someone for something that they can't give themselves. So, you know, these things are not super difficult once we apply ourselves. There's a lot and it's intricate, but it's not complex. We have to understand pattern recognition. Like I said, I'm going to take a break and cough for a second. Hold that thought for me. Yeah, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold. Um, so what's that doing? It's the universe encouraging us to get back to a more natural state in understanding pattern recognition. And again, all this is understanding. All, um, you know, at one point we were doing these talks and we were saying, oh, how did it go? Um, when the idea is the seed, the understanding is the soil, the intention is the water, and then the growth is the sunlight. So we have ideas, and we have to. Excuse me, coffee. Told you this might be a little bit less formal than usual. We have ideas. We have to keep building context around our ideas. We have to keep understanding that understanding. We have to keep adding more soil to these ideas, more we say context, but also uh, the term is um, um, oh, what's the term? Construct. It's a soil term. Uh, anyway, we need to be adding more soil. So adding context, adding understanding to these concepts is such a critical component, and that helps us align with our understanding. As we grow our understanding, we have pattern recognition, and then we're able to understand more and have some solid concepts like that pattern recognition, like understanding natural laws, um, interconnectivity, another huge one. That's shown when we're talking about narcissism. Um, we know narcissism on an individual level, and if you pay attention, you can see it on a societal level. And also, if you think about it, oh, everyone knows what narcissism is. It's such a common conversation but everyone's saying, well, yeah, this person's a narcissist, this person's a narcissist, this person's a narcissist. Well, if everyone's saying that, what does that mean? That means you have a whole fucking community of narcissists. That's a society. Welcome to America. That's colonialism, right? Everyone can't just be pointing at everyone else and not have it be a thing in contemporary society. Okay, so you've got these patterns, these identifiable patterns of narcissism in individuals. So where does that show up on a societal level? Same thing. The society is not conducive to uh, conversation, important conversation. Again, welcome to America. People throughout the history of so-called America, people have had to scream and fight, literally, to say the most basic things. that that a I'm laughing because it's so stupid, of course. Um, yeah, we all know this, right? Not new news, but we have to hold these things. We have to understand these things. Oh, let's not forget hallmarks of narcissism. Again, what happens as we see it clearly, and then poof, it gets washed away, and we're like, what the hell happened? Also, if you've ever been through addiction, exact same thing. Oh, I'm not going to use again. I'm not going to use again. Poof, I just used again. Oh, what the hell happened? It's an awareness lesson. I think let's 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 do some theory here. I think that the natural environment that our species evolved in for the vast majority of its evolutionary lifespan, right? Contemporary science, asterisk, 300,000 years, um, Homo sapien, misnomer, but okay, 3 million years, Homo species. The vast majority of those times, and everything else is hunter gatherer. Well, let's look at the environment aspect, because when something's in a natural environment, there's natural challenges, there's other predators, there's um, there's tripping hazards, falling hazards, drowning hazards, an assortment of weather hazards. Sorry. Assortment of weather hazards, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if we think about our cognitive function, which is the only thing that really separates our species from any other species, and which really is the only thing that's allowed our species to survive as long as it has, awareness is sharpening our cognitive function. So watching out for challenges, for hazards, for threats, right? The challenge of life and death facilitates life. To stay sharp and know that there's might be large cats, grizzly bears, venomous snakes, inclement weather, all these kind of things. How does that give us the aptitude to have the inner defense and skills build up to avoid our inner pitfalls, specifically addiction, narcissism, addiction, colonialism, same thing? Because that's the skill that we need. The awareness is the skill that we need to stop ourselves from falling into addiction, to stop ourselves from falling into abusive relationships, to stop ourselves from repeating negative patterns. Because if we tune in, if we're aware of our internal natural ecosystems, we can feel anxiety come up in our emotion. We can feel when I'm needing a cigarette. And if we develop ourselves eventually, if we pay attention to that, we can develop ourselves to the point where we can completely resist that urge. It might not happen the first time, might not happen the 100th time or the 400th time or the 1,000th time, but by understanding our process, it's just like anything else. Sometimes there's a longer learning curve, sometimes there's a shorter learning curve. But by applying ourselves, we can grow ourselves into something that can grow through that challenge. So what do? Grow ourselves. We can't buy, legislate, and we don't have enough time. There's not enough clock time to change our external, but our external human collective is a result of our internal human collective. So if we know how averages work, if we know how leverage works, if we grow our internal, if we grow our own carrying capacity, if we grow our own understanding, we can leverage that and add that to the collective and start to make things happen. So that's the process. We have to grow ourselves into beings that are capable of growing through this challenge with our species. And it's an inside job. It's not going to be mandated. It's not going to be legislated. It's not going to be bought. You know, people talk about mandating environmental legislation. Yeah, this is not saying don't work with what we got. It's not saying don't vote. But the reality is if you got to mandate protection for the environment that you lived in, you lost already. And that's how far behind we are, obviously. You know, these things need to be, our life needs to hold a more important place than that. Our life can't be relegated to a externally devised system. That's not life. And I mean that in the true sense. So that's not instinct. That's not understanding. It's not knowledge. It's not wisdom. It's not emotional intelligence. It's not objective thought process. It's none of those things. And I keep saying these things so everyone gets this support, right? We're building a community of support that these are truths. There's a lot of books that point to it. I know that the Tao of Abundance points to it. A lot of things from Ralph Waldo Emerson point to it. The list goes on. The information and the visibility of these truths and these understandings is all over the place. As the individual's growth is still not at the place that we need to get it at. And if we do our personal development, not only can we alleviate a lot of our own strife, but we can change things. We absolutely can change things. And amazing things happen, and I don't even know how to say it other than amazing things happen when we're truly in line with challenge. When we embrace challenge, it's not just on a surface level. It's that there's all kinds of energy that aligns in our favor when we embrace challenge, when we embrace core challenges. Spinning wheels on writing legislation for environmental causes is, I'm sure that's part of someone's like real legit place. And again, I'm not saying not to do that, but for most individuals, it's do that, but also understand that that is a super quick fix and it shouldn't even be there. We have to understand when we're trying to fight with the tools that the sick people gave us, and that is government money clock. Those are the tools that the oppressor gave us to use against them. in essence. And I don't like the term oppressor and all that kind of stuff because it's sickness. It's just everything's just collateral damage from stupid people, basically. Um, but that's all it is. The people say narcissism and manipulation. It's like, yeah, well, what they're doing is the manipulation part is they're trying to keep you from seeing their vulnerability is the big manipulation. And that's all. Oh, look, there's America again. There's colonial governments, all the bravado, all the exorbitant military, all the posturing, all that kind of stuff. No, that's not real. That's not even how humans actually function. It's just not. So understanding some of these things clearly so that we can see them with our eyes closed, literally and figuratively, is where we need to grow ourselves. We need to grow ourselves where we don't get stuck in the overwhelm, so we don't get stuck in the what can we do. We don't so we don't get stuck in the helplessness. There's tons of shit to do. There's look in the mirror, infinity of job security and what there is to do is right there in the mirror. There we always have so much to do, and it's kind of an interesting natural occurrence that in reality our own personal development pretty much takes up all our time. We've got enough time to manage ourselves, get something to eat, maybe have a relationship once in a while, and that's about it. Maybe catch a wink or sleep or two. But our own personal development really takes up all our time. So pattern recognition. So when people talk about manipulating someone else, that means they're not doing their own personal development. But wait, if someone's doing their own personal development, ultimately we outwit the nitwits, right? I mean, if there's one group, do the regular science thing, there's one group that's thinking and one group that's not thinking. Shouldn't the group that's thinking ultimately be able to outthink the group that's not thinking? Right? I mean, the intelligent people, the problem that the intelligent people on the planet are having is the nitwits. And I say we got to outwit the nitwits. So we've got a whole shit ton of growth to do because that's where everyone's stuck. It's like these people are idiots. Yeah, and we're having a fucking problem with them. So what is that? Oh, there's the mirror again. Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. We're obviously not there yet as a whole. So about 10 till 8. Like I said, I'm not sure how long we'll go tonight, but I usually like to stop about halfway through and see if there's any questions because a lot of people said, well, you don't leave room for any questions. And then I started leaving room for questions and no one says anything. So someone better have some questions. Come on. I'll call people.
I got a question too, Blow.
All right. Pilar.
So, bear with me a moment. It was towards the beginning. You were talking about, so how do we do this? From the very beginning, and you mentioned gadgets, um, and like a barrier. And the concept that came to my mind is as I was wanting you to expand on that, like give some examples of how those gadgets get in our way. I've got some ideas about it, but do you remember what you were talking about at that point?
Yeah. All the gadgets, all the extracurricular activities, all the board games, 2 million different styles of Snicker bars, 50 million styles of phones, 2 gazillion different cars, 50 million different computers, all this stuff. I think that every piece of hold on, I have a way to say it. Every single piece of Um, don't rush me. Every single piece of every non-critical external development is a void in our critical internal development. Sit with that for a little. How many different cell phones do we need? Like, do they not all work? Like, make one that works. How many different cars? Okay, yeah, big truck, smaller truck, bigger truck. No, just kidding. You know, in a car. In a van. We don't need 50 million flavors of gadgets. Those are symptoms.
So could you expand? Could you even say so? So the idea that I was getting is there's a distraction, but there's also the process of growing through a challenge.
Yeah, we have to engage the challenges because all these things are distractions. All these little extracurricular gadgets are distractions, is what happens. And business and trade has been hijacked to just building gadgets and building distractions. And look at entertainment. You know, geez, it's just people sitting in front of a TV. That's distraction. We don't need all those things. And so the distraction, that's again, if you understand addiction, it's chasing everything except for the core components. And skirting the issue. And what do we say that not acknowledging the elephant in the room only gets us stepped on and shit on. So it's the elephants in the room and in our own inner room, in our own inner living room, that we need to engage to not get stepped on and shit on, because by not engaging ourselves, by not understanding ourselves, our species, our own inner challenges, it's having catastrophic damages and just perpetuating as trauma and addiction do. So sticking to the challenge, not getting sidetracked, to be able to see when I'm going to want that next cigarette and to be able to back off it or not get in that relationship again, be able to back off it or not start thinking about different laws to enact to do this, that, or the other thing, and not have enough money to, buy my sense of security. And again, not saying don't use those tools, but they have to take their rightful place. They can't be at the top of our mental ecosystem. They have to be in view, but not overwhelming us. We can't let our thought process get sucked into false narratives revolving around creating change via printed currency and legislation. Is that basically what you were? Is that what you were wanting to hear, Nikki? Something like that?
Yeah, I figured that that's what it was, and I just didn't know if you had something to add in terms of like the process. How we talk about tools. We talk about, the hard work of working through things, and it's through the process of how we actually learn how we work and how natural law works. And I was thinking, I wasn't sure if you were kind of going that way with it also.
Um, yeah. For that example, I was just bringing up some I think pretty obvious phenomena in contemporary society where there's so many distractions um, available, um, which it's an enabling society.
Yeah, for
Talk
sure.
about addiction, it's made for the addict. Of course, it's made from the for by the addict for the addict is what it is. And people talk about, oh, what's America doing? Oh, fuck, America's doing the same thing it did when it got here. Um, what do you expect? If that's a surprise and people haven't thought about it, whoops, people haven't thought about this ideology, and that's what an ideology is. People don't look at the thing that they're grabbing to in their mental habitat. Of course, things are going to be fucked up. That's why people spend so much time actually thinking about spirituality. And there's not conclusions. There's not supposed to be conclusions. There's understandings. There's acknowledgments of what is, and there's also acknowledgments that we can't see everything that is. You have anything else that you want to throw in there? Nikki, any other questions? We've talked about a lot of these things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it's good. Pilar.
Doc, you've always got questions.
Just a comment, maybe. I mean, once you see it, you can't unsee it, and then you see it every fucking where, um, including from the inside out. So, um, I've got my work cut out for me, and I also have a psychotherapy practice, and somehow need to incorporate that into the practice, because without it, it doesn't have a solid foundation. So when you say, what do we do? It seems like a question to be asking every day, all the time, for the rest of my life. Is that about right?
Well, there's alignment there. I mean, you're doing it. You're aligned. You're in a perfect place to exponentially grow people.
Yeah.
And the more you grow, the more you help other people grow. So you have found yourself, well, you just happen to be aligned, in our internal, our spirit or both or whatever is going on moves us in ways that's what I was just saying. It's like we can't know. But all of a sudden it's like, oh, huh, I just happen to find myself in the perfect place. And I think you're in the perfect everyone's in the perfect place once they realize it. Because once we realize it, then we can say, oh, this back here shaped me for this. This here shaped me for this. This here shaped me for this, right? They say it's only a mistake if you don't learn from it. But if we do a retrospect, we can see where all the things add up for us to understand ourselves to help others and compounding. Now, my background in fisheries, forestry, wildlife, natural sciences um, gave me perfect place to understand humans. In my opinion, my background in business um, and my interest in personal development ultimately came together. I didn't understand that for a long part of my life, but now looking back, it's like, oh, okay. And it's not a clock time thing. The clock absolutely just doesn't, it has 100% nothing to do with our personal development. That's just such a critical component. Like, I don't know how to say, I don't know how to say, like, these things are in our daily life, but they don't belong there and they're not good for us. So I say it's like being being um, a substance abuse counselor in with active users. It's just all around us, and we're going to be affected. We're going to be affected by sick people. We're going to be affected, but we can limit those effects. And ultimately, being affected to a certain extent makes us stronger. right? That's where challenge comes into place. That's where the pathogens come into place. But to be able to talk with addicts, to be able to talk with people, that are not in good places, to be able to grow those boundaries, right? Here's a lesson of growing boundaries, of understanding these different components of ourselves, to be able to move in this world and to grow without thinking in terms of clock time, without having printed currency trespass on natural values, without having written laws trespass on natural laws. That's management of our own internal natural ecosystem. And that's the power of our objective thought process, our mental, you know, that's primarily through our mental. And of course, yes, our instinct, our emotional, our spiritual comes through there, but those are meditations to keep ourselves, the best thing to do for people is same way, if you have experience with addiction, you're a step ahead of the game. Because if you're trying to quit, you just use smoking. If you're trying to quit smoking, or any behavior, you need to create that awareness. And I say it's like being in the woods in the springtime where there's grizzly bears with cubs out, where you're fishing along a stream that there's bears. You have to have that heightened awareness to look for that anxiety and to see the anxiety before it gets a hold of you and push that out and attach that same level of awareness to things like a clock, things like government. When people get sucked into government, use that concept, put that concept in your boundary and catch yourself before you start getting sucked into the fucking political bullshit, because it's not helping, but it's the same thing. And that's what, I say, government money clocks, government money clocks, government money clocks. Everyone's, oh yeah, 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 but you don't get it. The substance abuse, the physical substances are the easy ones. I think that all the lessons that we've understood from physical substance abuse in contemporary society I think that's just the kindergarten part. To see addiction with non-physical substance, with ideologies, that's the real part. There's no peer pressure. There's no peer pressure. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to go to a store and buy it. You don't have to find a dealer and buy it. You don't, you know. And look, no one look, no one can speak to it. If someone's an alcoholic, hey, you're going to the liquor store a lot, if someone's out doing whatever, people can say, oh, you're doing this a lot. But you can vote and be a shithead. No one can say anything about it. Yeah. No one can say, people can say, here's another talk about compulsive reactive in contemporary society. Contemporary society is all just compulsive reactive. It's based on things that have already happened. If someone does something that's not conducive to a healthy society, they get punished. Okay, great. But that's the physical being already did something, so it's too late. Where's the pre-care? Where's the prevention? Where's the understanding of the mental, emotional, spiritual ecosystems in that person that then the physical followed and did these things? So people aren't paying attention to the thought process. So of course shit's going to go sideways. And no one can speak to it. No one can speak to things that are hurting each other, because everyone's sucking it in too much themselves. We have to grow the carrying capacity of our mental ecosystems. We have to grow our understanding of the challenges. And I say they're not difficult. They're intricate. but they're not complex. There's a lot of basic understandings that we just have to know. We have to apply ourselves beyond everything else to understand our species. And then we understand ourselves, and as a byproduct, our own personal lives grow better. But we can only grow ourselves in context with everything in a holistic sense, literally planetary, literally, understanding natural laws, understanding interconnectivity, sustainability, challenge, balance, ebb, flow, cycles, carrying capacity, understanding those things. And that's, again, something that I just always say, and I guess it bears repeating, is one of the key components to understanding natural science is that the concepts like this that says you don't understand an organism unless you understand the environment that it evolved in. Well, most people don't understand the environment that we evolved in. So of course we're having problems. Well, we're an organism on this planet. And if things are fucked up, go back to, problem solving 101. Understand its habitat, understand its environment, understand its evolutionary trajectory. This is science. This is like the most basic components to modern science and modern medicine. This information's here, just hasn't been applied to our species. Whoops. Which obviously there's a narcissist again. Everything else, pointing at everything else except for internal, except for the mirror and our introspection. We need to apply ourselves. We have the capacity to make change. We have the capacity to grow. But we have to do it, actually. You can't just sit and wish. If you were going to study for an exam, you wouldn't just sit there with a book in front of you. You'd have to study. If you were going to, let's all play a game. Let's say you're going to be a marine biologist. You're going to specialize in studying seals. Well, go ahead, because that'll get you understanding any life form on this planet will get you 90% of the way to understanding yourself. Because the same thing, food, water, shelter, procreation, habitat. If you understand those, and then check in with your emotional centers, with your emotional intelligence, you'll feel those things. We all feel those things. We all know when we're hungry, right? We all know when we're hungry. We all know when we're tired. Everything does that. So understanding natural patterns, not just in our species, but in other species. And then, if we're not aligned with other species, then, well, what do? Get back in alignment with other species. Don't try to ignore natural processes. Oh, well, wait, welcome to America again. A system built in a system that doesn't recognize a system it's in. It's the colonial governments literally their construct is separate from natural law. We've got printed currency, written laws, clocks. So there's no natural value, natural laws, or life cycles or natural time spans. So of course people are fucked up because they're relating to this artificial overlay that's been built by sick people. So if we're relating to something that's built by sick people and then wondering why we're sick, well, that's a mental issue. That's the part where you have to understand what's going on. We just went through it, been through it before. Narcissism, colonialism, narcissism addiction, 7-part series. Go to my YouTube channel. We just went through it. That's pattern recognition. To see these things, to understand the individual and where that happens in the societal. And then there's societal, so that's our habitat, that's our collective consciousness. If we talk about our habitat, we've got our immediate habitat, our family, our friends, our community, our job, and we've got the collective conscious. All those things are habitat. Our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, internal habitat, that's medicine. Modern medicine only exists because it understands habitat. But it doesn't apply it to the species as a whole. It only applies it to inside the species. That's colonialism. When we say missing the forest for the trees, that's exactly what it is. There's a business thing too. It says hold a penny so close to your eye that you can't see a dollar. That's colonialism. That's a linear mindset. That's a short-sightedness. To know the nuances of habitat, to man, look what modern medicine can do. But it doesn't understand the humans in a natural habitat. What's a natural habitat in human? Yeah, great. Everyone knows that, but not that the human's in a natural habitat. So, you know, there's a point where you just got to do better. That's like the what the fuck, people. The human's in a habitat. Psychology. People are looking at the brain. Well, the brain's in a body, the body's on a planet. What's the natural habitat of the organism? We're not going anywhere. Nothing's happening until we get some of that basic shit straight. So, better not be any questions now. No, just kidding. Who's got questions or comments?
I'm going to check out because I'm about to go drink some cacao.
Oh, stay.
Okay. Ceremony's up. Prayers up. Okay.
Prayers up. All right. I'm Kraig Smyth, my biz guide, Business of Being Human. This is tonight's kind of short workshop. What do we do? Now you know. Go do it. Thanks everybody for hanging out. I'm going to cut the live feed and go to the after party. So if you're just hanging out on Facebook, appreciate you. And you should definitely stop by to the live Zoom meeting. That way you can hang out at the after party. So I'm going to cut the Zoom off and then get back to the core group here. So take care, everybody. Have a good night.